Everyone, can we please get your attention? We are going to start. Hello everyone, my name is Nina and I am the president of education here. Before we start, I just want to say thank you for coming out and supporting our cause and getting the word out. We have some excellent speakers here today. Whether you already know a lot about the situation or you're here to learn more, this is for everyone. So thank you for coming. And our first speaker here
I'm not
is
saying it. I'm just saying it's like a bad timing.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Hello? You guys hear me? This side? This side? Okay. You guys hear me?
No, it's on fire.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. It's a really beautiful day. It's unfortunate that this whole event had to be here. But thank you for taking the time and coming and being present. This is a protest about Palestinian students, And in my time at UConn, being here for these last 3 years, I've never seen something for a particular group of Middle Eastern students. Because on this campus, we typically talk about Middle Eastern students as a monolith, right? And one thing that reminds me of that experience is how we feel as black people on this campus as well. And one thing that I realized over the summer of 2020 coming into this year and through this year is that for the first time in my memory, black issues on this campus were being taken seriously. And when things came up about George Floyd and about declaration for declaring racism a public health crisis, those things were addressed. But when the things were going on in Israel and Palestine, and when Palestinian students had family members that were being affected overseas, we were told as students this is an international issue, that this is a global and politicized issue, when in reality it's not. And the way that black issues for once are actually being addressed on campus is the way that I hope to see Palestinian students' issues addressed in the same way. Multiple times, I've heard multiple stories from Palestinian students about setting up events and magically the youth cancels them. Setting up a protest and coincidentally, there's a fire now, right? This can't happen any longer, and I refuse to allow it to happen. And for this year, as the president of the undergraduate student body, what I can promise all Middle Eastern students here, all Palestinian students here, is that we see you, and we love you, and we take your issues very seriously. And although it's never happened before, we want to offer you our platform to be able to speak truth to power to the things that are close to your heart. I'm here not just because I'm a student, but also because I'm a Muslim. I'm a convert of about 3-4 years ago. And I remember when I first began hearing about what was going on in Palestine, it was framed as an issue of, it's both sides, right? There's one side that has their view and there's another side that has their view. But we have social media, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have WhatsApp, we see what's going on. We see mosques being defaced and we see smoke bombs being thrown in them. We see Palestinians being moved off of their homeland and having it taken over for different housing. We see all of this, but yet, everybody stays silent. Our student leaders that are not Palestinians stay silent. The people who are with us as black students were not with Palestinian students. And we seem to only speak about things when they affect us. I don't want to take too much more time, but I do want to say one more thing before I go. There's a song by Charles Mingus, jazz musician, called Don't Let It Happen Here. And in the song, time after time, he reads off a poem about these different groups. And it goes something like, one day they came and took the Christians, and I said nothing because I was not a Christian. And one day they came and took the Gentiles and the Muslims and the blacks and the Asians, and I said nothing because I was not a member of any of those groups. But one day, they came and took me and my people, and I could say nothing because I was just as guilty as they were for watching them take everybody else. So for all of you here, regardless of whether you are a Muslim or you're Palestinian or you're not, there are students that are being affected by the issues that are going on across the ocean. And I implore you, with the same vigor and the same passion that you stand up for black students, for women on this campus, for the LGBTQIA+ community, please stand in solidarity with our Palestinian brothers, sisters, and non-binary siblings. Love them as you love yourselves. Love them as you love the people who are part of your group, and that emulation. Thank you.
know who is the victim of one of the largest displacements in history?
Do you know how it feels to have your homes demolished, your land stolen, your neighbors murdered?
Do you know what it's like to hear to bombs dropping in your community?
Do you know what it feels like to lose your whole family in a matter of seconds?
Do you know what's going on in Palestine?
Since 1948, Palestinians have experienced all of these very things. The implementation of the apartheid state of Israel has led to the rapid deterioration of the quality of life for Palestinians everywhere. And we have reached a pivotal breaking point.
Israel, an occupying force, has come to our homeland with the intention of genocide. Throughout 3/4 of a century, Israel has stolen our lives, stolen our land, stolen our history, and has stolen our basic human rights. We cannot stand by as they attempt to blur Palestine into history. We cannot stand idly by as we watch genocide unfold.
For centuries, there was no conflict on Palestinian land. With the rise of Zionism, however, a radical ideology that focused on taking over the land of Palestinians and for personal gain, the apartheid state of Israel was created. Following the United Nations partition plan, which split up Palestine, history goes on to tell the brutal crusade of Israel and their unlawful and unjust stealing of Palestinian land in addition to their culture, history, roots, tradition. All of this goes against the conditions of the plan.
From the Nakba in 1948, where over 600,000 Palestinians were illegally displaced from their homes,
to the War of 1948, which resulted in 80% of Palestine being conquered and over 500 towns being demolished.
to the Six-Day War in 1967, where Israel captured and illegally occupied the rest of Palestine, which included the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and parts of Egypt and Syria, even attacking a U.S. Navy ship and killing hundreds of American soldiers in the process.
All to this very day, where we see right in front of our eyes over 300 Palestinians being killed in May.
More homes demolished and land stolen in Sheikh Jarrah, Silwan, and other Palestinian villages.
Palestinian children being killed every single week.
Water pipelines destroyed for the pure joy and satisfaction in Israelis' eyes.
Illegal settlements doubled, tripled, quadrupled.
Palestinian graveyards being mowed over for amusement parks.
Palestinians having to go on hunger strikes for months to protest their unlawful jailings.
The list goes on and on and on. All of Israel's actions throughout the years go directly against the Geneva Convention and the United Nations worldwide humanitarian policy. This shows a blatant lack of human decency, an overlook of basic human rights, and the absence of humanity.
This is not a conflict. It's not a two-sided affair, not a war, not a political issue, not a religious issue. This is a human rights issue, and it is not a divisive issue. There is a clear oppressor and oppressed. A one-sided tale of occupation, ethnic cleansing, home raiding, home stealing, destruction of land, settler ideology, and brutal massacre of all Palestinians. Do not fall prey to normalization of this issue. This is a human rights issue.
The oppressor legitimizes genocide through false propaganda, a warped weaponization of religion, and the promise of financial utopia for any groups who support its disgusting agenda. In a tale told all too often, the oppressor is demonizing the oppressed. It is up to us to pull back the current of deception, to illuminate the human rights abuses of Palestinians, to unveil the truth, and never stop showing the world what Israel is doing to Palestine without our intervention.
This deals with the group who wants to see the end of all Palestinians once and for all. So now that we've told you what's really going on, what's truly happening over there, what can you do to help out?
How can you help the ongoing genocide of my people?
We're going to give you a list of things you can do to aid the Palestinian struggle as UConn students.
Now listen closely.
First and foremost, inform all around you, friends, family, peers, of what's truly happening. Post on social media. Engage with Palestinian-related content. Bring up the conversation and call out the lies. Don't be afraid.
follow credible sources in the media, and stay up to date with current events going on in Palestine. Do not fall prey to brainwashing and propaganda.
You need to call your local politicians, call your local representatives, and demand change. First of all, co-sponsoring HR 2590, the only bill right now that directly references Palestinians, which defends against the illegal occupation, illegal jailing, unlawful detainment of Palestinian children by the apartheid Israel state.
BDS, boycott, divest, and sanction. Ditch companies and products that actively support the oppression of Palestinian people. Say yes to Palestinian companies. Say no to Lockheed Martin, PayPal, Caterpillar, companies that your university takes your money and puts it to.
Demand that your university divests from these companies. Humanitarian aid. It always, 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 always helps.
Most importantly, educate yourself and educate others. Knowledge is power, and power is our greatest tool in a situation like this.
You have the power. We all have the power to make a difference. It is the power of social media that united walks and protests and rallies against Israel.
It is the power of BDS that has brought down companies and promoted Palestinian prosperity.
It is the power of humanitarian aid and relief that is giving these Palestinians a hope, that is giving them life.
It is the power of revolution that has brought life to these countries.
Do you call yourself a freedom fighter? Do you see injustice and say something needs to be changed? Being pro-Palestinian is being a freedom fighter. It is our responsibility as humans, as people who care about human rights all throughout the globe, to care about the Palestinian struggle and amplify our voices, amplify their voices. Throughout these many years, Palestinians have been degraded as people. We are not tick marks. We are not statistics. We are not news articles. We are human beings. We are humans too.
You and I are the ones that can show the world the true intentions of Israel and the oppression at hand. The power is in our hands. People over there don't have the platforms that we have. Choose to harness this power and do good with it. The difference between an activist and a revolutionary is that an activist stands on the front line and yells. A revolutionary recognizes that change needs to be made and does what they can to make that change. I recognize that we need change.
Since 1948, 73 years under occupation. We will stay strong throughout all this, however. Look at Algeria. It took them 132 years to achieve independence. Pakistan, 89 years. India, 200 years. The problem with most people is they don't think something can happen until they see it in front of their eyes. It's not stupidity, it's just human nature. We just have to convince everybody that this is possible. We will see a free Palestine. It's up to us to make that happen.
We are all Palestinian.
You don't have to be Palestinian to be pro-Palestinian.
You don't have to be Arab to be pro-Palestinian.
Nor do you have to be Muslim to be pro-Palestinian.
You just have to be human.
Now we hope to see you on the right side of history. Because when this all goes down, this is the right side of history.
As our mom always tells us, it is not a matter of if Palestine will be free.
It's a matter of when Palestine will be free.
Thank you.
Don't listen to those clowns over there. Get out of here.
So I just want to say we will not be intimidated, we will not be silent, and I want to bring up our next speaker, Hadia. So give a round of applause for her.
them, sign up, attend more things, all that good stuff. My name is Hadi and I graduated from UConn in 2017. I'm glad to be back for such an important cause. And I want to talk to you all a bit today about the Black liberation movement, its connections to Palestine, and also what you can do as students at UConn, and what we can do as residents of Connecticut to help support the Palestinian cause. When Mason was up here earlier, he referenced George Floyd's murder, and what I thought about was that at all the rallies that summer, I saw the people of Palestine standing up for Black liberation. There was not one single protest that I attended, one single talk that I attended, where Palestinians were not there standing up for the Black cause, right? But the Black liberation movement in Palestine had connections for literally decades. The Black Panther Party were proud supporters of the Palestinian liberation movement. In fact, many of them asserted and reminded all of us in the West that there is no freedom without the freedom of the Palestinians. When we talk about George Floyd, I remember last summer when across the world, Ahmed Attack was murdered by Israelis. And how the whole country was mourning George Floyd, and our brothers and sisters and our comrades in Palestine were mourning a loss of their own, and still showed up to the front lines, and still made sure that the Black cause at the forefront of their movement. Because revolutionaries are internationalists. I cannot be free here while a Palestinian mother is displaced from her home. I cannot be free here while an open-air prison is being run while millions are displaced and murdered in prison. And so it's not so much as it is solidarity as it is essential to our own freedom to fight for the freedom of those abroad. And what does that mean? That means that BDS is the bare minimum. It means that you can go without products to support the subjugation of your brothers and sisters abroad, because in turn it supports your subjugation here. The worst of United States police departments are trained in Israel. Our oppressors are trading notes. Our oppressors are out-organizing us. And that is because we are not able to centralize the left movement here. But when I look into the crowd of all of you, I have hope that we are going to not be out-organized anymore, because we're not out-resourced. We know that we're on the right side of this. So we have to come together and stress the importance of internationalism. We have to come together and say, I am a revolutionary, and I'm not waiting for a president of this settler colonial state to free members of another settler colonial state. It means that voting is not enough. It's great and it's your right, you should do that. But when you come back home from the ballot, don't forget to resist. Don't forget that Palestinians who are living in the worst realization of the carceral state find themselves the strength to have hunger strikes, to go out to the streets with the knowledge that they can be murdered, they can be kidnapped from their families. And still, they are the cause. They themselves are living it, and they themselves are revolting against it. So as our comrades in the West, as people who are living in the belly of the beast of imperialism, it is mandated that we at the very least do what they ask us to do. When Palestinians say take to the streets, and liberals say y'all should just vote, who are we going to listen to? Who's that? It means that each of us is mandated to take that into father with us wherever we go. On your campus, at your home, on the streets, you have a responsibility to resist. Remember that every day, we are beneficiaries of imperialism in the West. It is an ugly truth, but it is truth. And as the Black Panther Party knew, as all of our revolutionaries knew, there is no freedom without Palestine. We will not enter this great new world until every last one of us says that we will stand with them unobjectively. We do not believe Zionist lies that Palestinians are terrorists. We do not believe Zionist lies that we do not have the right to defend ourselves. Because there is nothing more violent than displacement, mass murder, and mass imprisonment. So every one of us, with the feet that you have and the hands that you were given, when they knock you down, we will crawl. When we can't crawl anymore, we will shout. And we will make sure that our every action is done with intention to help free the people of Palestine. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Fred Hampton. So I have a we have a right to, we have a right to fight for our freedom. It's our responsibility to win. We must love each other and protect each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Okay. Now, we talked a lot today about revolutionaries and what it means to be a revolutionary. And what it means to be a revolutionary is not that you're the loudest or that you're the most seen or your Instagram picture after the protest is the most poppin', but it means that every day you hold radical principles and you enact them. It can be with your voice, it can be with your writing, it can be with you walking out of a lecture where people are telling lies about Palestine. But whatever you need to do, if you're going to be in this fight with us, we're going to be revolutionaries, right? So at the end of when Fred Hampton used to speak, you guys should really look up Fred Hampton if you don't know him yet. He would always ask the people identify themselves as revolutionaries. So we're going to do that today. I'm going to say I am, and you're going to say a revolutionary, okay? I am a revolutionary. I am a revolutionary. I am a revolutionary. I'm doing that for you, Palestine, yo.
Israel's power has blinded everyone from recognizing and holding the apartheid state accountable for its war crimes. How many times are we going to hear headlines saying, Israel conducted an airstrike on a residential building in Gaza? How many times are we going to hear Israeli soldiers raided Al-Aqsa Mosque, shooting innocent Palestinians with rubber bullets and stun grenades before it's deemed a war crime? When Israel uses their billion-dollar defense spending on weapons against the Palestinian people who don't even have an army, who are left to defend themselves with the rocks on the street, that's not self-defense. That's a war crime. Amidst the deadliest pandemic we've seen in centuries, Israel gate-kept COVID vaccines from Palestinians. That's inherently discriminatory. Palestinians were expelled from their neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah, and the list goes on and on. The illegal Israeli settlement blatantly violates the Geneva Convention, and yet the world stays silent. UConn has remained silent after thousands of innocent Palestinians were killed as a result of Israel's war crimes. UConn is complicit in the ongoing ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. UConn partners with weapon manufacturers like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Pratt & Whitney, who give those weapons directly to the Israeli military. UConn is also complicit in silencing Palestinian voices. Not only have they tried to block Palestinian activists, such as Linda Sarsour, from speaking at the law school, they have 9 study abroad programs in the Middle East, claiming it's the Middle East, yet 8 of them are in Israel. That's inherently discriminatory. Not only can Palestinian students not attend, because Israel has a discriminatory action against these Palestinian students, not allowing them to even enter their homeland, UConn is directly aiding the discriminatory actions of the Israeli government. When will UConn stand up for justice? When will UConn defend the human rights of the Palestinian people? When will UConn finally condemn Israel's war crimes? Our movement won't stop, our voices won't be silenced until we see a free and liberated Palestine. Next up, we have Muad Harvezi who will be speaking. Muad is a congressional candidate who will be running for office in the 1st District of Connecticut.
What's up, everyone? How's it going? Can we start off by just making a round of applause, make some noise for the organizers and for everyone here who showed up? So as Basla said, I'm running for the U.S. House of Representatives in Connecticut's 1st Congressional District to represent us all in Washington. And this issue is a deeply American issue. We know that America has invested a lot into this occupation and is the one propping it up. And that without America backing Israel, that this occupation would not persist and would not propagate. America has been enforcing an occupation that has brutally oppressed the people, dispossessed them of their land, kicked them out of their houses, taken away their humanity and dignity, taken away the most basic rights that we all enjoy, such as freedom of speech and freedom of movement. And so this is deeply, deeply disturbing and should be to every single American. Why are we invested in this type of crime against humanity. And the reason is, and one of the most important reasons, is the fact that we have financial interest in making sure that Israel continues to stay as a powerful state. When it comes to weapons manufacturers, as Basla said, so many of them that are found here in Connecticut, they make money off of the bombs that are sent to Palestine, the bombs that are used to displace these homes and to keep them quiet. So we have to make sure that we're being loud and using our voices, because we are the only voices of Palestinians here. We are the ones who have access to our government that is continuing this unjust occupation. And so we can't just show up at protests. That isn't merely enough. If we really want to end this occupation, what we do is we organize. We don't take a moment and just come out and cheer. We make a movement. We send a message to Washington. We let them know that we're not kidding around, that unless they stop this, we will organize and we will remove elected officials that are not actually doing what we want. Just to digress slightly, we know in Washington that there are things as popular as common sense gun reform. 90% of Americans support that. Doesn't get passed. Prescription drug reform. 80% of Americans support that. Doesn't get passed. Conditioning military aid to Israel. 70% of Democrats support that. It doesn't get passed because of a vested interest. And so these are all tied. All of these systems of oppression are tied. And what we need to do is say to our elected officials, either you start representing us or we will remove you. So please make some noise if you want to see an end to this occupation. And now, I want you to seriously think, do you really want to see an end to this occupation? Because if you do, there is hard work that needs to be done. We are running a campaign because of injustice, and nothing is more emblematic of injustice probably in the world right now than this conflict that we are propagating as a people, as a government, as Americans. So if you guys are serious about seeing an end to this occupation, please find ways to get involved, help our campaign try to remove an incumbent who for 22 years has been working tirelessly to continue supporting Israel, won't even get on a bill that merely says human rights of Palestinian kids has to be respected, that American dollars can't be used to imprison children, Palestinian children. And so if you believe in human rights across the world, if you believe in human rights in Palestine and Israel, and if you want to see a prosperous, stable, safe region in the Middle East and in Palestine and Israel, then what I ask is that we have your support, that you speak to Basla, our campaign manager, and you find ways to get involved. There is work that needs to be done. We need to knock on doors. We need to talk to people. We need to make sure that people are aware of what's happening in Palestine. We know that the biggest tool they have is information, and that they suppress that information so people don't know. Most Americans have no idea what's going on in the region. So help us to take down an incumbent who has been working tirelessly to maintain this occupation. And thank you guys for your time.
Free, free Palestine!
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 Not another nickel! Not another dime! No more money for Israel's crime! Not another nickel! Not another dime! No more money for Israel's crime! Not another nickel! Not another dime! No more money for Israel's crime! Gaza, Gaza, don't you cry! Palestine will never die! Gaza, Gaza, don't you cry! Palestine will never die! Hey Joe Biden, you can't hide! We charge you with genocide!
Hey Joe Biden, you can't hide! We charge you with genocide!
Hey Joe Biden, you can't hide! We charge you with genocide!
Hey Joe Biden, you can't hide! We charge you with genocide!
We must continue to be visible. We cannot hide behind the shadows when Palestine needs us most, when Palestinians need us most. We can't be afraid. We can't be nervous. We can't be scared. Tactics that the apartheid state of Israel uses against us, making us scared, making us think that if we speak out, there will be repercussions. There won't be. These are scare tactics. They have no meaning to them. we are the brave ones. We are the courageous ones. We are not the scared ones. We're not scared of them. We're not scared of Israel.
No, we're not.
We're not scared of anybody. So make your voice heard. Speak up for us. Simultaneously speak out against them. Keep on fighting against Zionism. Fighting against the apartheid, genocidal state of Israel. And keep on supporting Palestine. Do not be afraid.
Alright, thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you for supporting. We really appreciate you guys. So keep coming to these events that we host. Keep making sure that your words and your speeches and your everything is heard. Because we will not be silenced. We will not stay quiet. And we will not be intimidated by the people that are trying to scare us. Because we're fearless and we are going to fight for a free Palestine. Thank you. Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Oh, and we have some wristbands up here. Come get some for your friends. And yeah. Thank you, everyone.